The NSPIRE inspection is finally upon us. This is going to be replacing UPCS as the basis of the REAC inspection starting in October of 2023. So it's coming up on us quick if it's not already upon us, depending on when you're watching this video, of course. I thought I would start off by talking about what are the highest scoring unit deficiencies that can be cited during an NSPIRE inspection. So this is based on NSPIRE 3.0. My name, by the way, is Michael Gant, presenting this on behalf of the inspection group. You can download the 2-page document that I'm using as the basis of this presentation if you'll go to www.reacguru.com/highest.pdf. That will download the document that you're looking at on the screen right now. Let's look at this a little bit closer. The section on the left shows scoring values for unit deficiencies under the letter U, inside deficiencies under the letter I, and outside deficiencies under the letter O. And this is based on the NSPIRE protocol. We have the deficiency names and the scoring values for deficiencies. And if we move slightly to the right there's a column labeled UPCS. This represents the scoring value of the identical deficiency, or at least a very similar deficiency, as recorded under the UPCS protocol. So let's zoom in a little bit closer and look at the first group of deficiencies. Call for aid and clothes dryer exhaust defects. These were actually two of the lowest scoring unit defects under UPCS. If you look in that UPCS column, these were each worth about 1/10 of 1 point. Under UPCS, it was almost negligible. This, by the way, is based on a property with about 100 units. And then under NSPIRE, Deficiency 2, system does not function for call for aid system, is worth 2.4 points. All of our clothes dryer exhaust deficiencies are worth 2.4. Now let me just explain quickly. Under call for aid D1, the system is blocked or the pull cord is more than 6 inches off the floor. That has no scoring value. It will be cited as a deficiency if the string is short or if furniture blocks the string, but it will be non-scoring. D2, the system does not function properly, includes when the string has been tied to something so that it can't be properly activated. You pull on the string and you're just pulling on maybe a towel bar instead of pulling on the switch. That would be worth 2.4 points, gone up from 1/10 of a point. The clothes dryer deficiencies, D1, D2, D3, D5, and D6, all involve dryer vents that are either detached, obstructed, or missing. And even on an electric dryer, REAC is now calling this a life-threatening health and safety. And then all of these items in red, actually white on red, 2.4 points. These are all considered life-threatening. These all are subject to a mandatory correction time frame of 24 hours. Some of these deficiencies, it won't really be possible to fix them in 24 hours. You'll need to report to HUD that it's in process and get an extension or just let them know how long it's going to take. Let's just hang on, back up a second. How do we calculate these scoring values? The scoring values I'm using in this presentation are based on a property that has 100 units. That's the first thing we need to know in order to calculate scoring is how many units does a property have? The number of units on a property will determine a sample size. That in turn will modify the base scoring value of our deficiencies. Under NSPIRE, every deficiency has a rating at 1 of 4 levels of severity. These are life-threatening is the highest, severe, moderate, or low, also known as normal. Level of severity and correction time frame is shown in this chart. Life-threatening deficiencies have a mandatory correction time frame of 24 hours and under units are worth 60 points. Yes, I said 60 points for one deficiency. Be patient. Watch how this works. Severe is a 24-hour time frame. It's worth 14.8. Moderate has a 30-day correction time frame. A moderate deficiency is worth 5.5. Low or normal severity has a 60-day time frame and is worth 2.4. Each of these levels of severity has a slightly lower value under inside, and then again a slightly lower value under outside. We take these base values and we divide them by the number of units being inspected. So we have to know how many units exist at the subject property. And we're going to refer to this sample chart that I've put on page 2 of the handout. And according to this handout, if your property only had 10 units altogether, your sample size would be 8. We would inspect 8 units. If your property had 50 units, the sample size or the number of units we would inspect would be 20. If your property had 100 units, we would be inspecting 25, and it goes all the way up to 32 units is the most we would ever inspect if a property has something like 922 units or more. So let's say we're dealing with a property that has 100 units. We have a sample size of 25. We're going to divide the base values in this chart by 25. So a life-threatening deficiency that is rated at 60 points, when we've divided it by 25, it will now be worth 2.4. In this video, we're going to talk about the life-threatening unit deficiencies. These are the highest scoring deficiencies in the inspection. Here's our inside values. Here's our outside values. All of these, regardless of whether we're talking units, inside, outside, regardless of how many buildings exist. The number of buildings mattered under UPCS. It does not matter under NSPIRE. We simply divide our base values by the number of units being inspected. So back to our chart, we have our call for aid and clothes dryer exhaust deficiencies. These again were some of the lowest scoring under UPCS. They're now some of the highest scoring under NSPIRE. Our next group of deficiencies are all things that were very high scoring under UPCS. They are now also high scoring under NSPIRE, even higher scoring in fact. For example, blocked egress, the blockage of an emergency exit was worth 1.6 points under UPCS. It is now worth 2.4 in a unit, 2.18 inside, 1.98 on the outside under the NSPIRE protocol. So we have 3 different deficiencies. There's an obstructed egress route or discharge. D2 is when there's a bedroom below the 4th floor that has an obstructed rescue opening. And this does not count obstructed by resident-owned items like furniture. Under UPCS, headboards, furniture, anything owned by the resident was in front of a window. It could be a blocked egress issue. That is no longer true under NSPIRE. We're not counting resident-owned items. D3 is when there's a fire escape obstructed. For example, you've got a window that goes out to a fire escape, and that window is blocked by something like an air conditioner or the window that doesn't open. Our next group of deficiencies is electrical. It should say electrical conductor, outlet, and switch. Electrical conductor, outlet, and switch. These are all worth 2.4. D1 is when there's an outlet or a switch that's damaged or has a missing cover, such that there's a shock hazard, it's unsafe. Now, this is another deficiency that under UPCS was only worth 2/10 of a point. It's now worth 2.40. D4 is exposed electrical conductor. This was worth 1.6. We actually called it exposed wires. It's now worth 2.4. This, by the way, replaces missing breakers and missing covers. They're all rolled together under exposed electrical conductor. D5, water is currently in contact with an electrical conductor. This replaces our old health and safety that was called water leaks on or near electrical equipment. That was worth 1.6 on the typical 100 unit property. This is now worth 2.4, quite a bit higher. Under electrical service panel, this replaces our breakers and fuses deficiency. We have D2, the overcurrent protection device is damaged. This replaces burnt breakers. This replaces damage or corrosion in the breaker box. The burnt breakers deficiency was only worth 0.64 under UPCS. This is nearly quadrupled again to 2.4. Flammable and combustible items. This was just called flammable materials under health and safety under UPCS. This was worth about 0.7. This is now worth 2.4. D1 says within 3 feet of a source of ignition, there's flammable or combustible materials or improperly stored chemicals. This no longer counts electrical outlets and electrical devices as a source of ignition, by the way. Heating and ventilation. Under heating and ventilation, you're going to find that we now have some deficiencies that are based on the time of year, from October 1st to March 31st. In other words, fall to early spring through the winter. Heat is inoperable, and the interior temperature of the home is under 64 degrees. That is considered a life-threatening issue. That is worth 2.4 points, up from 1.6. Unvented gas, oil, or kerosene space heater. This is a new deficiency. Didn't exist under UPCS. Combustion chamber cover or gas shutoff valve missing. That is also another new deficiency. Was not applicable. Didn't exist under UPCS. D5, exhaust vent is an unsafe condition. 2.4, up from 1.6. Our next item, mold-like substance. This replaces our air quality, health and safety, mold and mildew observed. D3, there's extremely high levels of mold or mildew, more than 9 square feet in any given room. That is worth 2.4 points, up from 0.7. Structural systems. This is an entirely new inspectable item. D1, a structural system exhibits signs of serious failure. That did not exist in the past. That's a new deficiency. It's worth 2.4. Under toilet D1, the only toilet in the unit is missing. That's considered life-threatening. It's worth 2.4. Water heater D4, the chimney or flue piping is blocked, misaligned, or missing. That used to come in at about 1.06. It's now worth 2.4. Gas shutoff valve is damaged, missing, or not installed. That is a new deficiency. Didn't exist under UPCS. 2.4. And then we've got another completely new deficiency. This is going to be kind of an uncommon deficiency. This concerns the chimneys that are involved with wood burning, fireplaces, or appliances of any kind. Wood burning being the key phrase there. If we've got an unsafe wood burning chimney, that is life-threatening at 2.4. We've got a group of items that under UPCS could only be cited under building systems. They could not be cited under individual units or common areas. Now, the scoring values of these items varied greatly according to the number of buildings we were inspecting. With a single building property, a fire extinguisher or sprinkler assembly deficiency could have been worth about 10 points. When we get into multiple buildings, let's say we had 10 identical buildings, it would be worth something like 1.8 per building. And if all 10 buildings were cited, it could be something like 16 to 18 points. These now work very, very differently. Fire extinguisher deficiencies and sprinkler deficiencies can be cited once per unit and can be cited once per inside, once per outside. Imagine that you had a property where we're inspecting 25 units and all 25 units are cited for sprinklers. 25 times 2.4 equals 60 points. You could lose 60 points or more just on sprinkler deficiencies. You could lose 60 points or more just on fire extinguisher deficiencies, which seems crazy, but that's the way it works. And of course, I've ignored the deficiency in the middle here, leak, gas or oil leak. Hopefully we don't find that to be real common, but you could lose 2.4 per occurrence. Then we've got a couple more categories of items here. A missing fire-rated door or a missing guardrail. Guardrails are a new inspectable item that didn't exist under UPCS. Or you've got a guardrail that's less than 30 inches high. These items will be worth 2.4 points, but not in the first year. And last but not least, I do want to mention that smoke alarm and carbon monoxide alarm deficiencies are all considered life-threatening, but they are non-scoring. Smoke alarm deficiencies have always been non-scoring. Carbon monoxide alarms will work much the same way. So, for each of these deficiencies, remember the definitions I'm showing you here are really very simplified. You can go to my website at reactguru.com/inspire/inspire30.htm. You can, by the way, just go to reactguru.com/inspire and you'll find a link to this. But if you want to go directly to the page, add /inspire30.htm, that will take you to a web page that has all of our deficiencies listed alphabetically. Each of these is a link. If you click on a link, like for example, clothes dryer exhaust, it'll take you to the simplified definition for clothes dryer exhaust. But if you then click on that underlined link, it will take you to the more complete definition. And I'm not going to read this out loud. I just want you to be aware that any questions you have involving these definitions, you can look up more complete definitions on that web page. You can also leave questions for me down in comments. Speaking of leaving comments, I would greatly appreciate it if you would go down to the like, click on the thumbs up and give me a like for this video if you found it helpful. You might even consider subscribing because I will be doing more videos on NSPIRE coming up here in the very near future. Now that it's rolling out, we've got a better idea of how it's going to work, and I think it's time for us to all study this and become familiar with how it's going to work. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Michael Gant for the Inspection Group.